Welcome to the Stephen Hasner Show. Today, we are going to be talking about how to build your dream team for a law firm, but a lot of it will apply to any business. And today on the show, we are grateful to have Erin Tankersley, our Director of Business Operations, who comes to us with a lot of years of experience and a lot of connection. So Erin, tell us about yourself and how you came to Hasner Law.
How I came into the second time I came into Hasner Law, or the first?
You could say first.
So I used to work for Stephen about a decade ago, but I got into the law field kind of circuitously. I have a degree in wildlife biology, and after working for a short time in wildlife, I had kids. That was my wildlife, and moved to Colorado. And then a family friend said, "Hey, you're halfway intelligent. Can I teach you what I do?" And he was an attorney. So I ended up kind of being a paralegal, and then I ended up being an office manager / paralegal. And then we moved here. But the first time around, came and worked for you, ended up, it was a good situation. And but we learned what's good, what's bad with employees and burnout. And we can always touch on that later too. But then after leaving for a hiatus, I've come back. And I'm really enjoying it. It's less stress than what I was doing before. And here we are.
Yeah, and Erin, Erin's modest, but she's extremely bright, extremely technical, techie, and has this amazing ability of drive, but also being so detail-oriented. And you're a huge blessing to the firm and to
Thanks.
me.
I like being here.
Yeah. So we're here talking about building a dream team. How would you define that, Erin? And then why is it important to have a dream team?
Defining a dream team probably can be as simple as it's a group of people that buy into your core values for the firm, your business, or whatever, right? It doesn't, you don't want robots, right? You want people with individuality, but people that actually have the same core values as you do, as you do as a person and as you do as a firm, I think. It's important to establish the values of the firm or any business, really.
And as you and I being leaders, you know, with the lawyers to be aligned that same way, and then who we fill in. I mean, the first step even before values is, I mean, you can't be a great lawyer and a great law firm without people who are doing a lot of the work in addition to the lawyer, right? So everyone thinks the lawyer does a lot of the work. They do, but the backbone really is the core staff on the legal team is paralegals, legal assistants.
Yes.
And the quality of those make a difference in the quality of service and what we do.
Yeah, and we definitely look for specific things when we're looking for those.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, we have an amazing ops team that you lead, operations team. We call it ops here. I know it sounds fancy, but then that includes in addition to that is intake and marketing and other facets of the business. That when we all come together with the same vision and values, then it really helps to make up a dream team.
I don't want it to come across like everybody loves each other and you're lovey-dovey and everybody agrees, but I think having the basics there of everybody believing the same type of, here's how we're going to do it, and that typically works.
And I know you're thinking of, in your mind a lot, because it's what you're doing all the time, is processes and having a good system and people following a process, but still being an individual. For me as a lawyer, when I started hiring people or hiring another lawyer as a part of that dream team, is because I can't handle every case. I can't lead every case. The numbers get too big, the volume, there's hundreds of clients that we have. So I want to trust that when we get a call on a case, that when we're assigning that case to the paralegal and the lawyer, that they're going to work the case how I would. They're going to care about the client the same way. Yeah. And that goes back to what you were saying about having the same core values, that when the rubber hits the road, that attorney at that mediation that I'm not involved in is going to do the right thing and say, no, it's not enough, or yes, this is reasonable. They're going to fight for the client. They're going to be willing to go to court to win a surgery. They're going to be willing to go to court to win a case versus just settling short or selling
not being
value.
lazy.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, not being lazy.
Yeah, we have certain criteria we look at when we're interviewing, and if we don't stick to the criteria, we make mistakes in hiring, and we've done it, we do it, and we rue it. And so we have to back up and fix the mistakes sometimes. But if we stick to the criteria and making sure that, we're looking for people that are hard workers, we're looking for integrity, you're looking for a smart fighter, right? Then it usually turns out okay.
Yeah.
On the higher side.
And nothing's a guarantee in that process, but you're more likely to be successful if you
Right.
stick with the criteria.
Right.
And sometimes there's urgency, there may be urgency in a hire, but it is never wise to hire from an urgent standpoint, because you've got to be slow in the hiring process to make sure it's the right person and the right fit, because it's a combination. We can talk about the details of the work that they need to do and to be excellent at it and to be proactive and those kind of things. But is it someone who also is going to care?
Right.
Is also going to.
You need some empathy there.
Yes,
You're right.
and have empathy and that combination. But it takes time to get to know people.
Right.
So the question is about criteria. What are the criteria we're looking for? Because we talked about it a little bit in general so we'll start with a lawyer, because we'd have a little bit different criteria when it comes to lawyer versus paralegal. But we have being a self-starter, willing to take initiative, and ability to handle a high volume of cases. Those are really two on the list. Self-starter is someone who you're going to be able to handle a large caseload. In our area of law, I mean, our attorneys are handling between 100 to 120 cases, which is a lot. Not all those cases are litigated, so with the team of a paralegal, it's manageable. But you have to be someone who's proactive, who's organized, has got a plan for their day, for their week, for their month.
Yeah, that one right there, I think that's super important. The attorney's got to be one that knows how to come up with a plan, can stick to the plan, execute the plan, manage his paralegals and team with that plan. And I think when you say self-starter initiative, that's a big deal. When you have a high number of cases, you could get bogged down in like, oh my gosh, where do I start? What do I do? With anything, if you're cleaning your garage, same thing. But if you have a whole bunch of cases, you definitely got to be a person that can come up with that plan and be a little organized. I mean, hopefully the para is more organized than you are. So how do you test for the criteria? One, you start asking them specific questions in the interviews that you're doing, right? So I'll ask them kind of their processes, how they attack their day, that kind of thing. And you can definitely tell from their answers, if they're using Outlook or if they're using a piece of paper, if they're using Excel or if they're using sticky notes. Stephen will go into things like specifically, how are you going to organize your case? You got a hearing next week and it's on this and this, and we can give specific examples that we want to run through. And you can just sit there and tell if that attorney's got an organized mind from just 3 or 4 questions. And then we also use tools here at our firm. We do certain, what do you call them? Personality tests,
Yeah.
Like, what kind of animal you are. No, just kidding.
No.
But other types of personality tests are very helpful, but they are only tools. We look for, certain ranges and the different criteria and things like that for attorneys and paralegals.
I think what you were saying, the best indicator of someone's performance or what they're going to do at the firm moving forward is they're based on their past experience. Mm-hmm. So digging into not just what you did and where were you, but examples.
Yeah.
So when you can hone in on details of examples of what kind of cases they were handling, how they handled those cases, like Erin said, what plans were those cases, how did you execute those, who else were you managing? Because one of the criteria, which Erin could talk about more, is just management skills, because you're managing 2 paralegals while you're executing all of these cases.
And having to talk to clients and opposing counsel. And
your follow-up on things and follow-up with paras, managing them, making sure they're getting done what needs to get done, case reviews. Every case in the office has a plan of action. But those examples are huge. And then I love the personality profiles. It's really not a test because it's not a right or wrong answer. We all have our personalities and things we have strengths in and things that we may not. And we use the Berkman method. We have a consultant, Rob Ketter, shout out to him. He's unbelievable.
Vision consulting works.
Yeah. And it helps. It's a piece of the puzzle. It's not the end all be all.
It also helps us put teams together.
Yes, it helps us put teams together too. But it really tells us, is someone a driver that they can manage that kind of caseload to be the self-starter? Right. That's one of them. And then talks about their ability to manage people. How are they going to, because managing paralegals as a lawyer is not just, hey, do this for me, or these 10 tasks. Right. Is, are you able to empower people to grow and make a difference in their lives? Because the parents have their own individual skills and their own, and they want to have be a part of the process. And are you able to get that out of them so they feel like it's a team effort? It's not just you telling others what to do.
Yeah, so that brings us to talking about the paralegal criteria. It's slightly different. I think paralegals need to be more organized than their attorney. The paralegal needs to have the empathy as well, because they're really the touch point for the clients a little bit more sometimes than the attorney. They do need to have some empathy, but they need to be detail-oriented and organized, number one, across the board. They also need to have that self-starter initiative. As the paralegal grows in her knowledge and her abilities, she needs to be able to feel comfortable talking to that client and saying, hey, we just haven't heard anything, not shoveling them off to an attorney, setting a call for you to have to say, hey, we haven't heard anything. The paralegal should say, hey, we haven't heard anything yet, and here's our plan on the case. The paralegal needs to feel comfortable doing that at some point too, but they definitely need to be organized and detail oriented. But and again, you get that through an interview and some personality profiles. Definitely through a personality profile.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Mm-hmm. So,
it definitely helps.
Yeah.
And Nick, you brought up before about those profiles, because they can help. They in the Berkman method in particular, which is very sophisticated. That's why it's very helpful to use a consultant like Rob Ketter. But he's able to determine based on those results who will work well together and why.
Who won't.
And there's no perfect. Again, there's not a right or wrong. It's just. It's sometimes the information is helpful for us managing the team, that we understand how they're real.
What drives them?
What drives them? What are they passionate about? Where maybe there be some holes that we have to make sure we're filling in that relationship, or for the work that
how to support them the best.
How to support them. And I mean, it really helps to help people be more successful, because our job is to help everyone here to be successful on the team.
Definitely the tools help.
Top 3 criteria in a lawyer: self-starter, takes initiative, can handle a high volume of cases, which applies to our firm. Not every firm would be the same way, but in our area of law, the relationship skills, management skills, managing paralegals, and then being a smart fighter. We haven't talked a lot about this one, but
super important.
One we haven't talked a lot about is smart fighter. Super important, because you
as the attorney.
The attorney, we are fighters. Clients want us to advocate for them, to argue their case, to be competent, to go to trial. It's why we get hired. But if you're fighting over every issue on every case, you're unlikely to be really helping the client. So we have cases a lot of times where we may have 5 issues, and based on my relationship with defense counsel, we're fighting, but yet we can resolve 3 of the 5 issues. That's good for the client. That may be getting them medical treatment sooner. That on a workers' comp case, or getting something else resolved, so then we can focus on what we really need to fight over. And then I think sometimes attorneys will make it a personal fight, which doesn't always end well, because it's not about the attorney; it's about the client.
They'll just want to keep pushing it to win.
In their best interest. Because sometimes in a case where we're getting a very good offer, and let's say it's being litigated, and there are problems with the case. Not every case is perfect when you go to court. There's risk of losing in front of the judge, but we get so wrapped up emotionally into the case that we don't take those blinders off to say, this is a really good offer, and there's a risk. Because I've had people go to court on cases they should have resolved, lose at trial, and the client ends up with nothing.
And we're out of gazillion dollars in expenses.
Because we don't have our clients don't pay us back the expenses. And it's not so much that, it's the client not receiving something from the case. And a lot of times it could be a good offer, and then you look back, why did I keep pushing on that issue?
But on the other side of things, you also have the attorneys that just want to settle, won't fight for some of those benefits and get more out of the case than...
Well, that's the fighter side. You have to have the fighter. You have to be, that's where it goes into the caring.
Correct.
Doing what's right by the client. We're making sure we're really prepared. We're not asking for continuances. You want a lawyer in the hiring process who's really getting the evidence they need, because that's usually what...
So that third criteria of the attorney is kind of a all-encompassing number 3. But
you got to be a fighter, but you want to be a smart fighter.
So for the top 3 for a paralegal are probably detail-oriented, organized, and empathetic, for our firm anyway. I think for PI work comp, you definitely need the empathy there. If you're a paralegal in real estate or just as general counsel reviewing contracts and stuff, I think your empathy doesn't really need to be that high. You're not dealing with people. Yeah. So, but for us, definitely. Okay, so my interview questions that I like tend to be the not the mainstream interview questions. You always have those mainstream interview questions like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Tell me what supervisor you were good with. Tell me what everybody's going to name. Oh, I hate a micromanager. And I like the interview questions that you get the 5-minute pauses. The interview questions of what's your purpose in life? The interview question of, hey, name me a non-legal book you've been reading lately. It could be nonfiction or fiction. Things like that. How do you rate your people skills? Why do you rate them like that? Give me an example. Things like that. When you ask questions like this, I'm able to kind of read the person as a person. And I really get a feel for how they fit within the firm, the team, the people that are already here. Because if I'm a good manager, I know the people that are here. I know what they're like. And when I'm reading this person and using my people skills to read that person, these types of questions tell me a whole lot. You ask that question, hey, what's your purpose in life? And we've had people sit here for a long 60 seconds and not be able to answer it.
Yeah.
And when somebody can't answer what their purpose in life is, to me, that's not a person that should be working for us. You can give me something like it's to help people, or you can give me something like to be a great dad. It's anything.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting how people aren't, a lot of people aren't used to hearing those kind of questions, not expecting it in an interview process.
But it's not just what they say, it's how quick somebody, like an attorney should be able to answer something.
And you brought up something, it was really good, Erin, but you brought up something good too, is that we're hiring for the work that needs to get done to represent our clients, but the culture of the firm is important and how they fit into that culture. Right. So we don't want to just hire a big driving, excellent lawyer who's a great lawyer, but if they're not going to be a good fit and everyone's going to be complaining and difficult and say they don't.
It's going to make my job harder.
Their paralegals are miserable because of how the person treats them. Right. That's not a good fit at Hasner Law, right? So those questions get more to the heart of the person.
You've got to be careful from an HR standpoint. Obviously, there are some things.
Well, you cannot. But those are reasonable questions.
Yeah.
Mine probably go more to the law side of a lawyer. Is we talked about examples, but tell me about a trial you handled, how you attacked it, how you prepared for it, or even just a case from the start to the finish. And I think it's important not to forget, and I think some lawyers do in the process. This applies to both attorneys and paras. They just assume because it says I've got 5 years of workers' comp experience that they're
handled the whole thing,
or handle the whole thing, but also have knowledge and have absorbed, because you can really, figure out if someone really a second level thinker, the depth of their knowledge by asking basic questions. So I never forget to say, what's this board form and what does it mean? It's something we see over and over on our cases. Yeah. and it'll surprise you when someone is
Who
here as a
doesn't know what
10-year
kind of- yeah.
a paralegal and they don't know the answer to the question. It's a red flag, because
Yeah.
what have you really learned in the process? Now, you don't have to be an expert and memorize the statute by any means, but these certain basic things to go, how much do they really know? Because you can't, we as a firm, and one of the selling points for lawyers is we hire really good paralegals, really
Right.
strong paralegals with a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. Yeah. So if I say that and then I hire someone and the lawyer says, wait a second, this person doesn't know anything about workers' comp, I've got to train them on the basics. Yeah. If they come in with 5 or 10 years experience. So, again, it's important to ask sometimes the basic questions. So not just how you've handled those cases, but what really knowledge do you have? Because some lawyers will say, oh, I know everything about catastrophic claims. Okay, well, tell me about it. How many
last
cases?
brief you wrote to go along with your rickety?
Yeah, exactly.
And when they're staring at you like a zombie, like
what
what's
is
a rickety?
it? So tell me about how you've handled the medical side of a catastrophic case, and then you'll learn.
What expert did you use?
You'll learn a lot that way too.
Well, I think you when you bring up that second level thinking too, I think it's super important on the paralegal side. As we hire, like you said, your good paralegals are going to be those second level thinkers. They're not, when they're talking to the client, and sometimes you're talking to a client and bells should be going off in your head like, oh, wait. And that brings you to another question, digging deep on some issues that may arise when you're talking to a client that you can then discuss with your attorney. The paralegals here, we encourage them to grow and to continue to learn and think, because second level thinking is super important here.
Yeah, very important, because you start seeing similar issues, and you want people who are able to see those issues. A lot of being a lawyer and a para is issue spotting, and then we typically have similar plans for those same issues that arise. Right. Definitely have a process to, have a hiring process. Right. Don't just.
It's a pretty good process.
Yeah, but just don't schedule an interview and go interview and then make an offer.
Right.
I mean, that's just not. Have a consistent process that you use, and you can adjust it. And if you want to adjust a little bit based on attorney or para, but have a process. We'll do an initial. We got into the Zooms or phone calls as a phone screen. Deciding when to do the Berkman or whatever personality profile, because there's others that are really good.
Mm-hmm. We've used DISC in the past.
Yeah, we used DISC in the past. The Berkman is like DISC on steroids.
Yeah, seriously.
But have a process where you're doing a phone screen, doing a personality profile. What's great about the personality profile, and then meeting with the consultant, it leads to a lot of great questions to ask for the in-person interview. Right. So then you're doing a lengthy in-person interview, sometimes a second interview. I even like to meet spouses. I know that some people may not be comfortable with that, but I think it tells a lot about a person when you're meeting others in their lives and taking time and getting to know them better. Have a meal together. I mean, it may be a little different for lawyer versus para.
Within the first 90 days kind of thing. So we do, here at the firm, we have a 90-day review period, both for paralegals and attorneys, really, because both of us are human, and people can interview real well, too. But within the first 90 days, you should pretty much know if they are that smart fighter, if they are organized, or how they fit with your culture. You definitely get that within 90 days. Maybe not in 30, but within 90. So it's kind of a feel you out, feel us out kind of period of time, because the hiree, the attorney or the para, may not like us either, or the work may not be what they thought it was.
Or harder than they thought it was.
Or it's like, dude, this is not.
We make
for
people
me.
work.
Yeah, we do.
You got to work your cases.
So
it's what the client's asking us to do.
Yeah.
And I think in that 90 days is important to be consistently communicating, because we talked about our goal is to help people be successful. If you come to if you're hired by Hasner Law, you're part of. We're bringing you into the Hasner Law family.
Right. It's also a time you can learn our processes.
Yeah. But we want you to be successful. We want you to grow. So it's not, hey, just good luck.
Yeah.
Here's your lawyer.
Stack of cases
good luck. It's we're communicating
Right.
consistently through the process to help you be successful.
Yep.
Because it's learning systems that we have are different from law firm to law firm.
Right.
And then how, there's a way we handle cases that I think is different than
what we
other law
expect.
firms.
Right.
So, but usually you're going to get the best of someone in their first 90 days. So it tells a really good story about their work ethic,
Yeah.
their desire. Do they really enjoy what they're doing here, and have a passion. So that 90 days is important.
I think team building is hard in this post-COVID world. We are an office that we're hybrid-y. We're remote some days in the office, the others. So we've got teams spread out actually over the state. So it's difficult. It's a fine line. You want to do some happy hours here and there. You want to do some fun things as a family. We're a family. We try to plan things quarterly to go along with some quarterly reports and meetings, but also do some fun stuff. We have a few employees across the state, so bring them in once or twice a year, give them a good time, and
well, we also promote teams to get together for
yeah.
lunches.
Oh, totally.
I mean, they're obviously talking, communicating, and
the attorneys need to
doing
take the
case
time.
reviews.
Attorneys tend to dig in, and then all of a sudden 4 months go by, and they've just kept on their paralegals, and paralegals have burnout. They get burned out. And so attorneys do need to, that's part of the management, take your paras out to lunch. Take your team out to lunch, and don't always talk about a case.
And we like to do community things together, giving back together.
Doing Operation Christmas Child today, packing boxes.
Packing boxes. So there's a lot of different ways to create a connection.
But it's probably important that we do it during working hours, because we do want to
respect people's
respect their personal time and their family time.
Yeah.
So,
and we talk a lot about at the firm. We know work is hard. We've got our work hours, but really it's to enjoy the other parts of your life, your family, the different activities.
I think that's
your
why
kids
most
are
people
involved
work.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so we understand that this isn't the end all be all, and it's just how we represent our clients. We're thinking of their lives and their families and the whole person and what's best for them. It's the same for the staff. I mean, we talk about the client journey through our firm from start to finish. What's the employee journey? Do you ever take the time out? What's your employees' experience from start to finish, and is that also good?
And it's important. Like I said, paralegal burnout is a real thing.
Yeah.
For one time, there was a statistic that work comp paralegals' life at a firm was about 18 months. I think that was about 5 years ago or whatever. And then they just left to go to another firm because they get so burnt out.
Yeah,
sometimes they'll change the type of law. We just had a paralegal this year who wanted to do a different type of law. This is hard work. Yeah. So we got to kind of temper that with something.
Well, thanks for joining the Stephen Hasner Show. Hopefully we were helpful today in your hiring processes. Do not forget to like and subscribe. We will see you next time. The Stephen Hasner Show.